Delight and a pleasure to see so many of you taking an hour of your valuable time on a Thursday night. I hope a lot of you haven't seen this talk I'm going to give before. Brief bit about me. I've actually known Carolyn since 1997 when she was looking after the Sheffield Eagles rugby league team, and I was one of the club doctors looking after the Eagles. I actually qualified in medicine in 1985, and I'm in the very lucky position that every morning I still get up and love going to work. It's a privilege to look after a population to the best of my ability, but the best thing of all is that they trust what we in the practice are saying. Before we start the microbiome bit of the talk, we're going to have a little talk about health in general in the NHS. And I think Lisa's now going to put me onto the PowerPoint screen. Hopefully. So I qualified in 1985. You'll see there's a number there next to 1987. That is £41.5 billion. That was the cost of the NHS 2 years after I qualified. By 2017, it had gone up to £124.7 billion pounds. Sorry, I've got someone just interfering with my slides, and now I can't move anything. It's gone up to 124.7 billion. I think we'd all agree that the health of the nation hadn't actually improved in that 30-year time frame. Another interesting figure there, in 1987, there were 300,000 hospital beds in the UK. In 1987, we didn't have a bed crisis every winter. We didn't have people on trolleys in A&E departments. By 2017, the number of beds had halved to 145,000. Here's just a little graph of the beds, and you'll see in 87, there were more acute beds here than there were total beds 30 years later. The other interesting thing on the bed front is that we had about 70,000 beds in NHS hospitals caring for people who had mental and psychological illness. That has now reduced to about 25,000 because we supposedly have care in the community. We are failing a huge population in this country because we simply do not have the capacity to care for them. Sorry, you're all expecting a talk on the microbiome. It is coming. So costs have gone up. Age and demand has gone up, but capacity has gone down. You'll all have seen on the news in the past 48 hours that they are converting the Excel Centre in London into 4,000 hospital beds. It's a shame that we don't actually already have that capacity in this country. So 26.9%. We're the number one in Europe. It's wonderful to be great at something. We're actually very good at being the fattest nation in Europe. The World Obesity Forum say that the cost of treating ill health due solely to obesity in the UK will rise from 14 billion today to 25 billion by 2025. I'm just going to tell you something that I hope will shock you. Of 5-year-old children in our country at the moment, 1 in 10 are obese. At age 11, we've managed to successfully convert 1 in 10 to 1 in 5 being obese. And the most damning statistic of this is that 4.4% of 11-year-olds in the UK are severely obese. That is, 26,000 children need active medical intervention for their obesity. By 2030, 45% of people in the UK will be obese. The thing that's going to destroy the NHS is not coronavirus, it's fatness. In 1980, when there were more hospital beds and less spending, only 7% of the population were obese. There is something that we can all do about this number, because we haven't got to 45% of people being obese yet. We have 10 years to make an active change. And what I want each and every one of you to do who's watching this video is to think of yourselves as the leader of a small health group. The way we make change in society isn't from above, it's from below. I want every one of you to look around your friends and family and work colleagues and try and change their health. And it's simple. There are simple steps we can take. A little word about pandemics. In 2003, we had SARS, caused by coronavirus. In 2009, we had H1N1, known as swine flu. In 2012, there was MERS, caused by coronavirus. And now in 2020, there's COVID-19, caused by coronavirus. The thing about all three of these diseases is that you could not turn to your health service, wherever it was in the world, for a cure. What you had to do was rely upon your own immune system. And there are ways that each and every one of us can help our immunity. And the main driver of your own immunity is your microbiome. It's great news. We can do something about it. But looking at those years, this type of illness isn't going to go away. It's a recurrent, cyclical thing. COVID-19 is here this year. Who knows when the next type of coronavirus or other viral infection, which has no treatment, will hit the world. So what is your microbiome? What role does it play in your life? What happens when it's not balanced? How does it become imbalanced? And what can we do to rebalance it? Your microbiome is actually the name given to all of those bacteria, fungi, and viruses that live in and on our bodies. There's about 1,000 different species, trillions and trillions of organisms. If you can imagine a 2-kilo bag of sugar, that is the weight of the bacteria that live in and on our bodies. Bacterial DNA outnumbers human DNA by hundreds of times. Your gut is actually one of the most important organs in your body, but none of us tend to do anything about it. The good news is that if we change our behaviors and our diet, we can affect those bacteria. Every single person has a different microbiome. So it weighs probably 2 kilos. 95% of the bacteria are actually located in your bowel. If we were to lay out everyone's bacterial lining, it would cover the size of 2 tennis courts. The number of microbes outnumber human cells by 10 to 1. And another stat is, if everybody's bacteria were laid end to end, it would circle the Earth 2.5 times. These are big numbers, and it's something that most of you will never have considered. So a newborn child is completely dependent on its mother's bacteria. I'm very lucky. I've got 3 grandkids. I'm unlucky in a way that all 3 so far have been born by C-section. And happily, I've got another one due in about a month. And that baby will also be born by caesarean section. 1 in 5 children in the UK is born by caesarean section currently. That's important because a baby will first become colonized with its microbiome by vaginal delivery, picking up loads of good bacteria. A baby that's born by C-section is sterile. Sterile from the moment it is released from its mother's womb, and it then picks up bacteria that are around it in its environment. That's why for babies born by C-section, it's particularly important that they're breastfed. One of the options that some hospitals provide for babies born by C-section is something called vaginal seeding. That's where a swab is taken from mum's vagina, even though the baby's been born by C-section, and the baby is covered by those bacteria and other organisms from the vaginal tract as though it had been born normally. This is important because we know that babies who are born by C-section are more likely to develop things like eczema and asthma, and are also slightly more prone to upper respiratory tract infections. This is a very complicated looking diagram, but really it's very straightforward because it shows the variety of bacteria that live on our skin. So the bacteria that are on the corner of your mouth are completely different to the bacteria that are in your armpit, that are in turn completely different to the bacteria in the palm of your hand. So any manufacturer of cosmetic products or body creams who say they are microbiome specific are talking complete and utter BS. Here's a diagram of the GI tract. Your stomach is acidic and has relatively few bacteria. I'm just going to make a point here. For those people who purport an alkaline diet or alcohol or alkaline water, it's completely converted to acid in your stomach. The reason an alkaline diet works is because it tends to be a healthier type of diet for no other reason. It does not change your body's acidity or alkalinity. That is completely controlled by your kidneys. Straightforward fact. So don't go on any faddy, hype diets purporting that it's the alkalinity that's changing your body. It's actually the structure of the food that you're eating. As you move through the gut to your small intestine, the acidity is decreasing and the number of bacteria are increasing. But the majority of the bacteria, the majority of your microbiome, is actually based in your colon, your large intestine. Factors affecting gut bacteria. So we know that the acidity decreases as you're going through the gut. The oxygen levels decrease as we're going through the gut, and the number of contractions decrease as you're going through the gut. There are some factors that you have no control over. The amount of acid that your stomach naturally produces, the amount of oxygen that's in your bowel, the rate at which the muscle in your bowel works, the amount of mucus that the lining of your bowel naturally produces, the other secretions, the antimicrobial elements that your gut naturally produces, and the immunity that your gut is naturally producing. There are factors that we do have an influence over, and if you look, these are all, other than diet and pre and probiotics, Western pharmaceuticals. All of these have a negative impact on your gut microbes. So PPIs are things like omeprazole and lansoprazole. Antibiotics have a massive negative impact. Some people take certain drugs to improve bowel mobility. So if you're constipated or have IBS, you may take prokinetics or laxatives. Opioids aren't just morphine, it's basically drugs which contain codeine, have a massive negative cocodamol. And non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, ibuprofen, naproxen, huge negative impact on your bowel. The majority are Western pharmaceuticals. We take them because we think they're making us better. They actually make us iller. Just about Western pharma. In 2011, the UK spent £11 billion on the drug budget. By 2019, that had gone up to £18 billion. The aim of this talk is really just to make you all think about your own health and well-being and what you can do about it, so we don't go down this roadway in the next 10 years to there being no affordable healthcare in this country. So there's good and bad bacteria. Good bacteria, bifidobacteria, E. coli, lactobacilli, things that are found in sauerkraut, kimchi, live yogurts. There's bad bacteria, Campylobacter, in eggs and uncooked chicken. If you get gastroenteritis and you've been to a restaurant, it's probably because of this Enterococcus faecalis, and C. diff is the one that's in hospitals, that's virtually untreatable and causes real morbidity and mortality in elder populations. Why is the microbiome so important? We don't really know why. There's a huge amount of research, and most of it started in the last 2 or 3 years. It's becoming more and more apparent that the bugs that live in our gut control all elements of our well-being, from our brain health and hormone function to our immunity. Obviously, you'd expect them to be involved in digestion and metabolism. They are important in vitamin production, and they actually also influence your genes. This slide I love. So identical twins, one is a bit more kilogramically gifted than the other. 2 identical mice. Now, science is a bit weird, but a scientist in a lab thought, what would happen if I transferred the stool from the thin twin to the mouse and the stool from the rather larger twin to a mouse? Now, these mice are identical and they were fed the same diet. Thin twin, thin mouse, thin mouse. Fatter twin, thin mouse, fat mouse. So this slide brought home how important the microbiome was to me in controlling our well-being. It just made something in my mind think, is it really that simple? And it made me do a lot of reading on this topic. But if you think we are running headlong into an obesity crisis in the country, and if it's as simple as changing the microbiome of our population by dietary choice, why on earth aren't we doing it? So here's our typical diet: high in saturated fats, high in sugar, and a lot of us eat processed foods. Sugar is one of the keys here because it's hidden. Manufacturers put it into all sorts of foods without us realizing. And they put it in because it makes food taste good. And as a nation, we are probably addicted to sugar. And it's a difficult habit to break, especially when you have no idea how much sugar you are consuming. And in one of our later slides, I'll show you an NHS app, which I want you all to start using. And I want you to recommend it to as many people as you can, because it's hidden sugar that's making us obese. The other thing that we don't do is we don't eat enough fiber, mainly because we're not used to it. It's not part of our natural diet, but it should be. And we think it goes in the too difficult box. The other thing we definitely don't have enough of is fermented foods. Things like kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, all of which are really, really easy to make. You should never buy any of them. If you look at things like Yakult, which is supposed to be the fantastic probiotic yogurt, I think it costs something like £5 for the 7 little bottles. It contains stabilizer, emulsifier, all sorts of other stuff to make it have a long shelf life. And most tragically, 1 pack of 7 contains 16 cubes of sugar. So your microbiome helps in the breakdown of food into micronutrients. These are all the things that you'd expect it to do. The good bacteria work with fibrous foods, if we're eating any, to bind things like heavy metals and estrogenic chemicals, toxins basically. It maintains the integrity of the gut wall, and it actually makes some vitamins and nutrients that are vital to our body's systems and processes. We've all heard of that expression, gut instinct. It is a real thing, follow your gut. It's because the brain and the gut communicate. We never thought they used to. The gut actually has very similar neural activity to your brain, and it can operate completely independently of your brain. There is a direct link by something called the vagus nerve between the bowel and the brain. Now, when I was a junior doctor, we didn't know what the vagus nerve was. we thought it was useless. And there used to be an operation for people who'd had gastric ulcer called pyloroplasty and vagotomy. It's where they used to remove part of the stomach and cut the vagus nerve because they thought in some way it caused stomach ulcers. How wrong could we be? So, surprisingly, probably for most of you, the gut actually produces hormones. It produces serotonin, known as the happy hormone. It produces GABA, which makes you feel calm and relaxed. It's very important in the production of melatonin, which helps you to sleep. And it's an important regulator of the female hormones, estrogen and progesterone. There are other hormones which have a direct impact on the brain. And a really important one is called leptin. Leptin is produced by fat cells. And the fatter you are, the more leptin is produced. So what happens is that people who have obesity have a hormonal drive to eat more and more and more to satisfy these adipose or fat cells. Leptin is known by its other name, the fat controller. What happens when your microbiome is disrupted? You get something called dysbiosis or leaky gut. Lots of people have heard of this term, leaky gut, and I'm going to try and explain to you what it is, and more importantly, the impact of having it. What you have to remember is that this condition, dysbiosis, is preventable, and it's preventable by changing your microbiome through dietary choice. So gut bacteria, we know, alters the way that we store fat. It impacts the levels of glucose in the body, and it has a significant impact on how we respond to hormones, leptin, that make us feel hungry or full. So next time you are craving for a slice of chocolate cake, it's not your brain that's asking you for the chocolate or the sugar, it's the bacteria in your bowel. Right, this looks, again, very complicated. This is the inside of your gut, which is a tube, and this is the outside of your gut, which is your body. So inside your gut, you know, we have loads and loads, trillions of bacteria. We also have a layer of slime called mucus. And if any of you ever had serious gastroenteritis, you know that you pass jelly, slime. That is this layer, which is critically important for your well-being, being expelled from your body by bad bacteria. When you have the dysbiosis or the incorrect microbiome, you don't have these nice things called tight junctions, which protect your body from your gut. You have this leaky gut. Now, this is a diagram which shows cells going into your bloodstream. That isn't actually what happens. It's toxins and chemicals which are precursors. They make bad things happen inside your body. So leaky gut isn't actually cells going across, it's chemicals, the wrong chemicals. What has dysbiosis got to do with you? Well, actually, everything. Because we know that having the wrong mix of bacteria in your bowel causes all of these. It is 100% linked, we now know, to the development of autism in children. It's definitely linked to depression and anxiety. It is associated with asthma and eczema. I mentioned that in children born by C-section. It is linked to heart disease, hypertension, angina. It's linked to poor circulation in your legs mainly. It is linked to Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. We know it's linked to obesity. It's also linked to cancer of the bowel, and it's linked to liver disease. All of these important things. So what happens? The toxins travel from our gut and they cause inflammation. This leads us to have an altered metabolic rate. It changes the way that we deal with all aspects of our metabolism. It leads to something called insulin resistance. So we don't process sugars in the normal way, which are then stored as fat, which then cause heart disease, furring of the arteries. So basically, if you can fix your gut, none of these things will happen. I work as a GP, happily, and if you look at this list of things, most of those are conditions which people will come and see their GP for. Diabetes, directly linked to obesity. Heart disease, linked to obesity. A lot of these things, obesity linked to obesity, obviously. Something here called brain fog. I didn't know what brain fog was until about 5 years ago when I started to get it. It's just where you can't think clearly. You know what you want to say or do, but you can't quite get round to doing it for reasons which are unclear. We know that dysbiosis obviously causes hormone imbalance. The melatonin that your gut produces does cause sleep issues. Who'd have thought that anxiety was linked to the bacteria that are in your bowel? Both of these are hormone related. You've seen the variety of bacteria that live on your skin, but those bacteria are actually influenced by the bacteria that are in your bowel. So why don't we have good health? It's because we eat the wrong foods. It's becoming increasingly apparent that even when we think we're making the right health choices, we're making the wrong ones. And as we have more farmed and processed foods, as vegetables and fruit have to look more and more perfect, and we can get strawberries in December and mangoes in December, wrong time of year, and we expect to get every vegetable whenever we want, we've gone away from seasonal growing. It means that farmers are actually putting chemicals and growth producing stimulants into their normal crops, which means that the perfect looking vegetable probably doesn't contain the nutrients and vitamins and minerals we expect it to. The other thing is our lifestyles have changed, particularly at the moment. We've become more sedentary. We don't exercise as much. Kids expect to be driven everywhere. I used to walk to school. Nowadays, probably the majority of parents would drive their children door to door. When I was at school, there used to be a lot of PE lessons. I know now that there's far less physical exercise actually taught, because nowadays we're not allowed to be competitive. We can't have winners and losers. Everyone has to be the same. The other thing that we have absolutely no control of is our environment. we live in an environment that's surrounded by pollution, surrounded by plastics, surrounded by toxins in the atmosphere. It was only recently that I found out that was plastic in tea bags. And if you've been using tea bags for years to make your cup of tea, your body is full of microplastics from the tea bags that you've been using. So we're in a global health crisis. Obviously at the moment, I now call it coronavirus, because I'm just so fed up of hearing about it. Coronavirus, it's a very real thing. It's destroying our economy. It's having a huge impact on every one of our day-to-day lives. It is a virus which is going to come and go. The thing that is really going to impact our global health is obesity. And it's the choices that we're making, and we don't appear to, as a world economy, we're doing an awful lot for coronavirus. We should probably be doing it more about our dietary choice. Health is a continuum, and it goes both ways. If you have poor health, you can make choices to improve it. If you have great health, you can make the wrong choices and it can get worse. One of the things is, I would guess most of you are fairly economically sound. Sadly, in the area of Sheffield where I work, people can't choose to eat fantastic food. When McDonald's sell a burger for 99 pence and Aldi sell a bag of apples for £1.29 and you are on minimum wage, it makes your choices very difficult, even if you know what you should be doing. The other thing is that the more economically deprived parts of our society are less likely to exercise than the more economically advantaged. And that process starts in school. Schools have to be the bed of promoting health and well-being in our society. I'll go back to that figure, which I hope shocks you. 1 in 10 of our 5-year-olds are obese. 1 in 5 of our 11-year-olds are obese. That is the critical age group that all of our health educators, our health service should be looking at, because those are the kids who have learned behavior. So this is the app that I suggested you get. It's called the Change for Life Food Scanner. It's free, and it scans the barcodes of every food that's available in the UK, well, the vast majority. You know, I was talking to you about hidden sugars, and when we think we're making the right choices, we aren't making the right choices. An example of this is this innocent super smoothie, which contains kiwi, lime, matcha, cucumber, flax seeds, plus vitamins B1, B6, C, and E. This small bottle of innocent super smoothie, which you would think was making you better, contains 9 cubes of sugar. Can you imagine having a cup of tea and putting 9 cubes of sugar in? People would look at you as though you'd gone bonkers. People look at you drinking this and they think, wow, what a healthy person. The other thing I would suggest you watch is something called That Sugar Film, which will really bring home to you the hidden sugars that corporations are putting into our foods, and no government appears willing to stop it. So, it's been in the news in the past 2 or 3 years, a number of health conditions. We now definitely know that the microbiome impacts Parkinson's disease. We definitely know that the bacteria in your gut impacts the way that you as an individual will react to chemotherapy. I've got a real question for all of you. So I'm a doctor working in the NHS. Should I look at you as a single human organism, or should I actually be treating your gut bacteria? Because it's those that are the driver of all aspects of your behavior and your well-being. How can we look after our microbiome? We can reduce our sugar intake if we know about it. We can reduce the amount of processed foods that we eat. We can certainly increase our fiber, and 30 grams a day isn't that much. Increase our green vegetables, increase our fermented foods. And those are the typical fermented foods. And I'm actually doing some quick videos online on how to make kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut. They're really, really easy. You should never buy any of those foods. The other thing you can do, and I did mention earlier on, that we think that the fruit and veg that we're eating is full of the right nutrients. Unfortunately, due to growing practices of farmers globally, the foods that we eat, even though they're the right choices, probably do not contain the vitamins, minerals, and trace elements that we should be getting on a daily basis. I want you to think again about the micro health groups. Think about the impact that you as individuals can have on your friends and family, and the influence that you can have on generating well-being. The other thing that I really hope that this coronavirus crisis will lead to in our population, our communities, is something called behavioral nudge. And that's where a population changes its behavior because of an event and maintains that change in behavior. Let's just appreciate where we are and what we have. Let's not always strive for something bigger or better. Let's remember to look after our communities. It was amazing that 500,000 people in our country volunteered in a 24-hour time frame to look after those people who needed help. I hope and pray that 500,000 people continue to look after those people who need help in this crisis. And on that bombshell, I'm going to hand you over to Terry.
Thank you, Rav. Well, I think there were some good messages there, as well as a bit of doom and gloom. I'm speaking from Warwick, where I live in Warwickshire, but I am a Sheffield lass. I'm originally from Sheffield. I was a PE and biology teacher at the girls' high school for some time. And I'd like to just give you a way forward for those of you that are thinking, right, okay, I understand that sugar creates a lot of bad bacteria. I may have leaky gut, and I certainly don't want to have some of those issues that Rav was talking about. And I know you may be sat there thinking, well, I'm all right with my weight and I feel okay. But as Rav mentioned, so many illnesses and so many conditions that often people are suffering for at least 20 years at the end of their lives are associated with gut health. And since I've worked on my microbiome, I can tell you I've got more energy now in my late 60s than I had in my early 50s. So, you know, there's something you can do about your energy levels, how well you sleep, how good you feel, and resetting your gut is a really great first step. So what do? Well, we have a 21-day program, and I know Carolyn's done it, I know Dr. Rav's done it, and certainly his partner Lisa that will be talking in a minute. And I would highly recommend, this is a great time, you've got time for once in your life, and it's certainly something that is a good thing to do. So I just want to explain how you do that. So it'll only take a few minutes, just sharing my screen. There we go. And just smooth that out of the way a little bit. Okay, so the 21-day program. This is something that you can do. It's very easy to do. There's a lot of support, and it's primarily based around foods that feed your good bacteria, but don't feed your bad bacteria. And so we're cutting off things that create sugar in the body. So not just obvious sugar-loaded foods, but foods like simple carbohydrates. Anything white, for example, no white sugar, no white flour, rice, pasta. These are the things that create sugar in the body. So our 21-day program is a combination of the right food. So lots of protein, lots of lean protein like chicken, turkey, also red meat is absolutely fine, eggs, cheese, etc. Lots of green leafy vegetables and a variety of vegetables. So on this 21-day program, you're eating plenty of food, but we're cutting out those foods that create sugar. So as Rav said, using that app, you can actually look at the foods that are in your cupboard now, and I guarantee you'll be shocked at some of the things. I mean, I live on my own, and I went through a period that I was really busy, and one of my go-to foods was Waitrose pea and ham soup, and I loved it. And I now know why. I used the sugar app on it one day, and it was 17.5 teaspoons of sugar in the soup that I was having, thinking I was healthy. So it's really good to get on top of the actual food that we're eating. So on this 21-day program, we're also taking supplements that do individual jobs, really important jobs to really help with leaky gut. None of us want all those toxins leaking into our bloodstream, going all over our bodies. You know, as Rav said, there's plastics in tea bags, there's plastic in all kinds of things, and it's in our body, along with pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and all of these, if we have leaky gut, are not sitting in our colon waiting to be eliminated. They're being absolutely creating havoc in our bodies. So the supplements that we're doing, along with healthy food, very low refined carbohydrate food, are 5 different supplements that do really, really great jobs at resetting our gut health. And one is a vegetable shake that's got things like inulin and some great microbiome, gut-friendly ingredients, and that's called Biome Shake. We then have the Biome DT, which has got things like inulin as well, which is soluble fiber. Rav said that we need more fiber, but also in here is something called L-glutamine. L-glutamine is really good at helping to repair the gut wall, so that's why this is a really important ingredient in this. Our flagship product is ProArgi. Primarily it's in here to help with circulation. It increases nitric oxide in the body, and that's how it improves circulation, but also it's very high in antioxidants, which help with when there's any inflammation in the body. And most people, when they have leaky gut, do have inflammation. Also, we have Body Prime, which primes the body with magnesium and fiber, and also the Biome Actives, which are our pro and prebiotics with inulin in there. And what's so great about that is that most probiotics that you buy, over 90%, actually never reach the gut. The good bacteria is destroyed by stomach acid, etc. So all of these 5 supplements are not only from food and organically sourced, they're actually scientifically validated. we've had human trials for several years working out the best formulation to really help set the gut. So what we do for the first 5 days, we're priming, you're eating healthily, cutting down on that sugar, cutting down on things like caffeine, and yes, I'm afraid cutting down on alcohol as well. So instead of, 4 or 5 glasses of wine, cutting down on 1, 2, so that by day 6, for 7 days, we do the more intense part of the program where we're taking supplements throughout the day and we're really cutting out all that sugaring, including, if you possibly can, alcohol for 7 days. And then on day 13, we start introducing those things, and you'll find by day 21, you really have changed your taste buds and also the way that you really want to be eating. You feel so good, you sleep well, and you really see the benefits pretty quickly in actual fact. So those are the actual supplements. This is an idea of how you would be in these 7 days, the middle part of the 21-day program. For breakfast, you'll be having the vegetable shake. You can add fruit to your shake. It's very filling, and it's certainly feeding your microbiome, all the good bacteria, etc., along with the BioMDT and your actives. Again, you have a lunchtime shake with some snacks, healthy snacks that feed the microbiome, like vegetables, like olives, carrots, things like that, or nuts are also very good. And then in the evening meal, you have a really healthy meal, lots of protein, a third green leafy vegetables, and lots of other coloured vegetables on your plate. And you do that for 7 days. And it's an incredibly effective program. Now on Channel 4, coming very, very shortly, there's a program called the best way to look after your gut, basically. I can't remember the exact title because they've just changed it. But it's a program where they look at solutions for gut health. And one person, for example, is sent on an Ayurvedic clinic. Another one does a paleo diet. Another actually just tries to do it through fermented foods. And another one did our 21-day program. Now, I don't know the actual outcomes of the other 4 people, but the one that did the 21-day program, our Purify program, she was a single mum in her late 40s, 4 young children, not very healthy, overweight, pre-diabetic, and also had hormonal issues as well. Within the 21 days, she lost 9 pounds, 5 inches off her waist, 3 inches off her hips. She's slept better than ever, and she said she's never had so much energy. And you'll see this program in the next few weeks. So we really are having fantastic results, even in the first 21 days. And what happens, you continue to improve, and hopefully you still take on board some of the things that Rav was saying about really cutting down on particularly hidden sugar in our diets. When someone does our 21-day program, we also try and support them, and I know that this is what Carolyn is doing with her clients who want to do this program. She's done it herself, so she knows how to help someone. But we give daily encouragement, menu suggestions, and a whole support group, either on WhatsApp or Facebook, whichever is your preferred way of keeping in touch. And I know Lisa, who's Rav's partner, has recently done the 21-day program. So I'm going to hand it over to her just to explain some of the benefits, because she's also been helping quite a few of her friends and family go through this as well. So over to you, Lisa.
Okay, hi everybody. Yeah, I did it in January, and I was quite amazed actually by my own results. A doctor was about to put me on statins for high cholesterol, and I was also about to go on thyroxine for an underactive thyroid. I didn't want to do either. So in January, I actually did the Purify program, and I was tested in February, and I was amazed with the results because my cholesterol was normal and my thyroxine was normal. So I now didn't need to medicate. I was absolutely gobsmacked. But from what Terry said in terms of your taste does change, it's quite incredible that it's only a 3-week kind of program. But when I did it in January, we were going to New York. We were very fortunate enough to go to New York for Rav's birthday, in actual fact. And Rav couldn't believe the food choices that I was actually making on holiday. It does just change you. And it's really good just to kickstart. If you want to kickstart and make a difference, what you do and what you learn during the 21 days will stay with you, and then you can build on it after. So I was so impressed with it. I have been supporting other people, and I've only been doing it a couple of months. So I did it myself in January, and I've supported a few people through January, February and March. I've had people with colitis who it's solved their colitis issues. I've had people who did want to lose weight. It's not a weight loss program, but you will lose weight on it if you do need to lose weight and you want to lose weight. I've had people who had fibromyalgia, and they've got the most energy that they've ever had, or certainly they've had in 5 or 6 years. And really impressive. I had one young girl, 20-year-old girl, who has suffered with lupus, really, really severe, and she has had some pain-free days, which for her is a massive, massive difference. So I have actually, with my own eyes, been able to witness all the things that Rav's talked about. I've actually seen, which, to be honest, in such a short period of time, I've been pretty amazed with. So yeah, yeah, for my own story and for my friends, I can see a big difference.